which will help in ensuring that consumers get safe and quality food on the market. In fact, Speaker, sir, the Mauritian family has always appreciated and shared local dishes. However, in order to avoid food poisoning, allergies, dehydration, and other bone contamination, the Honourable Minister is now coming with this bill to avoid all these various contamination by controlling at source the packaging, transportation, storing, preparation, cooking, and food serving. The Food Standard Agency Bill is to bring these said control throughout of the chain and thus raising consumer confidence. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill will also ensure that standards and certification for vegetarian and halal food be harmonized. Mr. Speaker, sir, during his speech on the food bill on the 29th June 2022, Honorable Reza Outim rightly pointed out that a sizable portion of the Mauritian population is either vegetarian or only eats halal food. That is why, Mr. Speaker, sir, in the health sector strategic plan 2020 to 2024 at strategic goal 22, safeguard health security through the promotion of food safety is one of the strategic actions that is to establish a food standards agency, which will be responsible to set standards on fast food and soft drinks, and also for the certification of vegetarian and halal food, among others. Today, Mr. Speaker, sir, with this bill, the government clearly shows that it walks the talk and he cares for our people and is here to ensure that our population eat appropriate food according to their beliefs. One of these measures, Mr. Speaker, sir, is to have the halal certification based on guidelines set by Codex Alimentarius Commission. This commission, Mr. Speaker, sir, is a collection of internationally recognized standard codes of practice, guidelines and recommendations made by the Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, and the World Health Organization, that is the WHO, to protect consumer health and promote fair practices in the food business. Mr. Speaker, sir, the halal part remains a sensible issue and may give rise to unfruitful and reverencing debate. I believe in the good faith of the Minister for regulating the issue of halal certificate. Surely, a compromise must be reached in matters related to halal certificate, and again, Mr. Speaker, I hope for a consensus with those who approve the certification with the Honourable Minister. This agency, Mr. Speaker, sir, will further provide to the public comprehensive information on food safety and nutritional value of food. This will largely help to educate our population on choosing the right healthy food and curbing bad food habits which lead to chronic diseases like hypertension, diabetes, cholesterol, and heart-related diseases. Mr. Speaker, sir, The Mauritius Food Standard Agency Bill will simplify the task of all stakeholders in the food supply chain, as it will be a one-stop shop where they will first get information and secondly apply for certification. And furthermore, as announced by the Honorable Minister of Health and Wellness during his concluding speech on the food bill, MFSA will be operational as from early next year. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, sir, with the implementation of the Food Standard Agency, a stakeholder in the food sector will also be guided by the procedure and system which the agency will develop to help in enforcing and comply with the Food Act 2022, thus ensuring consumer safety and health. The agency, Mr. Speaker, sir, will also be of great support to the sanitary department, as it will help in conducting food hazard monitoring surveys, foodborne disease surveys, and audit for the purpose of implementing performance measures to test the effectiveness of the food control system. All this, Mr. Speaker, sir, having a sole and unique objective to ensure an effective, transparent, and accountable regulatory framework within which the food industry can work efficiently, and thus bringing a high degree of consumer confidence in the safety and nutritional quality of food produced, processed, imported, sold in, or exported from Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, sir, this government is fully committed to ensure that food safety challenges are adequately met to minimize any disruption in the future. Here, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to mention that I'm fully confident that the Honorable Minister, Honorable Jagat Pal, will in his success act to the best interests of each and everyone while exercising powers given to him under this bill as far as nomination of competent person at the level of the agency. Thus, Mr. Speaker, sir, I shall end by congratulating the Honorable Minister, the Minister of Health and Wellness, for bringing this new bill, which will ensure a high degree of consumer confidence in the safety and nutritional quality of food. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have trust that this will be handled by good hand within the new agency, thus congratulating the Honorable Minister. With this word, I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for everyone here, for listening for what I have to say in this August Assembly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am immensely grateful for being given the opportunity to address this August Assembly on this landmark piece of legislation. Indeed, the Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill is another historic step in the construction of a sound, viable, and healthy food system, one which consolidates confidence both within our local food-related institutions for the population's overall health. In fact, at the very core of this legislation, it is the earnest wish of the Honorable Prime Minister and the government to continue his relentless mission in protecting the population from potential health issues. Mr. Speaker, sir, we are starting this parliamentary year with yet another achievement for which the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness must be commended. This piece of legislation, Mr. Speaker, sir, indeed comes at the most opportune moment for our country. However, the operation and purpose of the new Mauritius Food Standard Agency must be clear for everyone, and it is our duty to ensure that we explain clearly the ultimate objective of the proposed institution to our constituents. Mr. Speaker, sir, the COVID-19 pandemic has undeniably highlighted the need to build food systems that are not just sustainable, but also healthy, inclusive, and resilient. Hence, I very much welcome the alignment of the Mauritius Food Standards Agency bill with the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, which aims at eradicating hunger, reducing malnutrition, and accelerating climate action and making our food systems more sustainable. This bill demonstrates the government's dedication to guaranteeing food safety and stability, which is crucial for both the health of consumers in Mauritius and abroad, and for our reputation in international trade. It displays a dedication to ongoing development of the legal framework that supports the food and beverage sector. Food and beverage exports, imports, and local direct and indirect employment numbers contributing significantly to our economy. Therefore, the bill intends to safeguard our public health and uphold Mauritius' reputation as a provider of adequate and safe food both locally and abroad. The bill also has an overarching aim, which is to centralize the enforcing powers of the Mauritius Food Standards Agency, which will lead to a reduction in red tape for businesses in terms of certification, applications, processes, and timelines. Hence, as the sole national regulator, the existing enforcement tools will adequately arm the Mauritius Food Standards Agency, irrespective of the type of food, so as to encourage behavior change and deal swiftly with operators who do not comply. This bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, represents a significant improvement in the way we manage food safety. We are very much an exporting nation, and we truly live and die on the market perception. As anyone who has ever been involved in marketing would know, perception is incredibly crucial to the value of a product. Our food standards must be able to specify the format procedure, and timeframes for regulator to receive risk-based plans and programs from food firms. Hence, the Mauritius Food Standard Agency must receive the risk-based plans, and they must also be submitted for assessment. This means that producers must create plans, and the regulator must confirm the legitimacy of the organizations that will assess those plans. Risk-based planning are one of the areas which should be significantly enhanced. Our food safety system is built on these blueprints, which outline how operators will be in charge of their own risk management procedures. Thus, the legislation will make it possible to create regulations that specify which components of these risk-based plans must be submitted to the regulator for registration. These clauses will aid in addressing the inquiry's worry that the regulator occasionally lacks complete knowledge of risk management strategies. The basis for food product traceability will also be strengthened through the setting up of the bill. For businesses to be able to react promptly during a food safety event using strategies that they and the authorities know will work, traceability and recall systems are essential. Mr. Speaker, sir, I believe that the Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill will improve consumer access to healthy food while also preserving Mauritius' standing in international trade. We aim to make sure that our legal framework continues to prevent as many food safety accidents as possible and has the procedures and resources to handle any unforeseen circumstances with promptness and effectiveness. The bill is an additional step in the ongoing effort by this government to strengthen the law governing food safety, require a food system that fosters creativity, promotes value addition, and motivates more food companies to export. Mr. Speaker, sir, there is also significant opportunity for the Mauritius Food Standards Agency to further enhance its collaboration with the Codex Commission. The Codex Alimentarius or Food Code is a collection of standards, guidelines, and codes of practice developed by consensus based on the most robust, up-to-date science available. Codex texts not mandatory, but governments frequently use them as a basis for national legislation to ensure food safety, quality, and fair practices in food trade. Since 1963, Codex has developed hundreds of internationally recognized standards, guidelines, and codes. It has defined thousands of permitted levels of additives, contaminants, and chemical residues in food. The end goal ensures food is safe for everyone and everywhere. The standards are adopted by the Codex Alimentarius Commission, which currently comprises of 188 member countries and one member organization, the European Union, and 240 observers, of which 60 are intergovernmental organizations, 164 non-governmental organizations, and 16 United Nations agencies. The Commission, also known as CSE, was established in 1963 by the Food and Agriculture Organizations of the United Nations, the FAO, and the World Health Organizations to protect consumer health and promote fair practices in the food trade. Mauritius has been a member of the Codex Commission since 1971. And for the Mauritius Food Standards Agency, Mauritius will have a stronger presence. Mr. Speaker, sir, after the setting up of the Mauritius Food Standards Agency, there is a genuine opportunity for Mauritius to be a regional leader in promoting the consolidation of high food standards in the sub-Saharan Africa region. Potentially, Mauritius could spearhead a regional center of excellence to generate and share the latest research, consultation papers, and data analysis. Through our experience and growing expertise, we can aim to be a leading player in the regional design, assessment, and enhancement of food standards. Such a role will fit perfectly within our country's ambition to establish Mauritius as the leading international food standards platform. There is also potential to increase our collaboration throughout to obtain cutting-edge training and co-offer research pieces with International Association for Food Protection, an international network which represents more than 50 countries and more than 4,500 food safety professionals. Mr. Speaker, sir, salute to the Honorable Minister of Health and Wellness, vision, hard work, and decorum for presenting this piece of legislation. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Honorable Prime Minister has been unyielding in setting up these rights institutions to cater for the protection of the population's health. He has a solid track record and will not stop here in terms of new ideas on how to better protect, educate, and inform our population. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, de me donner l'opportunité aujourd'hui de m'adresser à cette assistance sur ce projet de loi qui me semble tout à fait judicieux dans les temps qui courent. Permettez-moi, pour commencer, de remercier mon collègue, le ministre de la Santé et du Bien-être, le Dr Kailesh Jagatpal, qui a ouvert les débats sur le Mauritius Food Standard Agency Bill. Monsieur le Président, les restrictions que de nombreux pays ont mises en place pour gérer la propagation de la Covid-19 ont à leur tour eu de graves répercussions sur l'industrie alimentaire. Les habitudes d'achat des consommateurs ont changé, ce qui a provoqué une panique qui a mis à l'épreuve la capacité de certaines chaînes alimentaires à réagir, tandis que les fermetures de points de vente, de services alimentaires et de détail non alimentaires ont entraîné la perte des marchés pour d'autres. Dans les usines, par exemple, l'accent a été mis, à juste titre, sur la modification de notre mode de travail en introduisant une distanciation sociale comme tel a été le cas partout à travers l'île et presque partout dans le monde avec les nouvelles pratiques de travail pour préserver la santé des travailleurs. Le conflit entre l'Ukraine et la Russie n'arrangeant pas les choses, les changements auxquels nous sommes tous en train de faire face ont toutefois introduit de nouveaux défis dans la manière dont nous devons gérer la sécurité alimentaire, car nous avons déjà commencé à faire face à une perturbation potentielle des chaînes d'approvisionnement et des conséquences dans l'industrie alimentaire. Monsieur le Président, la sécurité sanitaire des aliments est devenue un sujet de préoccupation de plus en plus important, car il est là question de la santé des consommateurs, le renforcement de la sécurité alimentaire et la promotion du commerce international. Garantir la sécurité sanitaire et la qualité des aliments est devenu de plus en plus important, surtout pour notre pays, qui importe et qui peut aussi exporter des produits alimentaires vers les principaux blocs commerciaux du monde développé. Le respect des normes internationales, des principes directeurs et des recommandations ayant trait à la production d'aliments dont la sécurité sanitaire et la qualité sont les conditions préalables au commerce international. L'implémentation de ce projet de loi voudra surtout dire que l'île Maurice possède maintenant la capacité analytique nécessaire pour détecter et surveiller les contaminants alimentaires tels que les résidus de pesticides, les médicaments vétérinaires ou la présence d'antibiotiques pendant le processus de production et dans les produits alimentaires finis et garantir la qualité des produits agrochimiques utilisés. Selon l'Organisation mondiale de la santé, les premières estimations mondiales publiées à ce jour sur les maladies d'origine alimentaire montrent que chaque année, une personne sur 10 tombe malade en consommant des aliments contaminés et que 420 000 personnes dans le monde en meurent. Les enfants de moins de 5 ans sont exposés à un risque particulièrement élevé et 125 000 personnes dans le monde meurent chaque année de maladies d'origine alimentaire. C'est dans les régions OMS de l'Afrique et de l'Asie du Sud-Est que la charge de morbidité imputable à ces maladies est la plus élevée. Près d'un tiers, soit 30% des décès dus aux maladies d'origine alimentaire concernent des enfants de moins de 5 ans, bien qu'ils ne représentent que 9% de la population mondiale. C'est en tout cas l'une des constatations d'un document intitulé « Estimates of the Global Burden of Foodborne Diseases » de l'Organisation mondiale de la santé. C'est le rapport le plus complet à ce jour qui traite de l'impact des aliments contaminés sur la santé et le bien-être. Le rapport qui estime la charge de morbidité imputable aux maladies d'origine alimentaire due à 31 agents pathogènes, bactéries, virus, parasites, toxiques et produits chimiques indique que chaque année, près de 600 millions de personnes dans le monde, soit près de 1 sur 10 dans le monde, tombent malades après avoir consommé des aliments contaminés. Parmi elles, 420 000 en meurent, dont 125 000 des enfants de moins de 5 ans. La qualité nutritionnelle des produits alimentaires liés au contenu, c'est-à-dire des ingrédients, nombre de calories et aux propriétés de santé, donc réduction de risque de maladie, sont des informations essentielles à une bonne hygiène de vie. Lorsque le consommateur achète une denrée alimentaire ou un produit industriel, il lui est souvent difficile de choisir parmi un grand nombre de produits qui semblent tous présenter les mêmes caractéristiques, les mêmes performances et les mêmes composants. Certains produits se différencient des autres car ils portent sur leur emballage, à côté des informations réglementaires obligatoires, la dénomination de vente, la date limite de consommation, le pays d'origine, etc. Des informations facultatives à vocation commerciale pour attirer l'attention du consommateur. Ce projet de loi, Monsieur le Président, vient à point nommé pour compléter les efforts fournis par ce gouvernement en vue de garantir la sécurité sanitaire et la qualité des aliments, ainsi que le renforcement du système de contrôle alimentaire. Les aliments impropres à la consommation constituent une menace pour la santé dans le monde et mettent en danger tout un chacun. Les nourrissons, les jeunes, les enfants, les femmes enceintes, les personnes âgées et les personnes atteintes de maladies chroniques sont particulièrement vulnérables. Chaque année, 220 millions d'enfants dans le monde contractent des maladies diarrhéiques, dont 96 000 décèdent. La sécurité sanitaire des aliments est une responsabilité partagée du gouvernement, des producteurs et des consommateurs. L'île Maurice importe la majeure partie des produits alimentaires que nous consommons. De ce fait, la sécurité et la qualité alimentaire sont des enjeux pour notre pays. Afin de garantir cette sécurité auprès des consommateurs, le ministère de la Santé et le gouvernement central apportent maintenant ce projet de loi, le Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill. Un projet de loi qui apportera certes des réformes conséquentes dans le domaine de la normalisation et la promotion de la qualité, afin de contribuer à l'amélioration de la sécurité sanitaire des aliments. Monsieur le Président, manger permet de vivre, mais manger peut aussi tuer. C'est ce que nous disent des experts du Bangladesh, pays où l'on utilise excessivement des pesticides. Il y a une absence de réglementation sur la vente d'aliments de rue et le manque de sensibilisation à l'innocuité des aliments qui sont d'ailleurs à l'origine de pas mal de problèmes de santé chez des millions de personnes chaque année. Au Bangladesh toujours, les enfants de moins de 5 ans sont les plus exposés au risque de consommer des aliments dangereux. Au moins 18% des décès d'enfants de moins de 5 ans et 10% des décès de personnes adultes sont imputables à la consommation d'aliments dangereux. Cela, d'après une étude réalisée par le Centre de santé animale et de sécurité alimentaire de l'Université américaine du Minnesota. Au Bangladesh, toujours, la Constitution garantit à tous les citoyens le droit d'accès à une alimentation sûre et nutritive. Mais les choses sont différentes dans la rue. Les vendeurs de rue qui disposent de petits chariots non réglementés nourrissent plusieurs millions de personnes chaque jour et ils n'offrent aucune garantie, malheureusement, de sécurité. Le Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill agira également comme régulateur à notre cuisine de rue, à cette cuisine fusion qui fait partie du folklore de notre pays et dont nous ne pouvons nous passer. La cuisine de rue, Monsieur le Président, a accompagné l'évolution de notre civilisation au fil des siècles. Comme cela arrive souvent, c'est justement dans la pauvreté que le génie humain trouve sa plus haute expression et crée les bases immortelles d'une culture gastronomique particulière. C'est sans nul doute le plus gros préjugé sur la cuisine de rue, parce qu'elle est née dans la pauvreté, dans l'exigence primordiale de nourrir la populace. La cuisine de rue a toujours été sous-évaluée. Et pourtant, et encore plus à l'heure de la mondialisation, il s'agit souvent du dernier rempart de la tradition et de l'identité d'un territoire. Il suffit de penser à nos gâteaux piments, samoussa, du pain frit, rôti, dalle pourrie ou un bon bouillon de boulettes, des mines, kebab ou biryani et j'en passe. La cuisine de rue identifie et délimite la tradition tout en conservant l'un des aspects les plus importants de la culture d'un peuple, ses coutumes alimentaires. Aujourd'hui, pour faire plus tendance, on parle de street food. La mode actuelle de street food est en train de prendre un aspect bien différent en misant sur l'aspect culturel de la tradition parfois revisitée, fusionnée, améliorée sur la qualité d'une cuisine de plus en plus raffinée. Le slogan street food actuel pourrait se résumer ainsi: une cuisine de rue, qui est le vrai témoin de l'identité d'un peuple. À n'en pas douter, Monsieur le Président, elle permet de mesurer le degré de culture alimentaire et sa tradition, mais aussi la capacité de se réinventer continuellement dans la jungle quotidienne d'un tissu urbain en perpétuelle évolution, tout en maintenant ses racines dans l'histoire de notre pays. En bref, la cuisine de rue, c'est délibérer des préjugés pour revendiquer sa place sous le soleil en tant qu'expression de notre folklore mauricien. Idem pour les fast-food. N'oublions pas cette réalité de notre société, la population fast-food et ses à côté. Ces fast-food qui ne font pas toujours l'unanimité auprès du ministère de la Santé et autres professionnels de santé, mais qui ne font pas aussi nécessairement de bien à notre santé, avec plus de 45 000 Mauriciens en surpoids, mais ces fast-food ô combien savoureux. Ce qui est sûr, Monsieur le Président, c'est que ce projet de loi va remédier aux faiblesses de l'actuel système de réglementation de l'innocuité des aliments, y compris le manque d'application des lois de contrôle des aliments tout le long de la chaîne d'approvisionnement. Ce projet de loi introduira également un système de surveillance des maladies d'origine alimentaire et exposera les grandes lignes d'un plan de réponse d'urgence en cas d'épidémie de maladies d'origine alimentaire. Un code pratique concernant l'hygiène alimentaire serait égal à un mirador au contrôle nécessaire tout au long de la chaîne alimentaire, de la production primaire jusqu'à la consommation finale, pour que tous les acteurs, agriculteurs, cultivateurs, fabricants, transformateurs, manipulateurs d'aliments et consommateurs puissent être responsables de veiller à ce que ces produits alimentaires soient sans danger et propres à la consommation. Monsieur le Président, l'objectif principal de ce projet de loi est d'élaborer et réviser les normes alimentaires en tenant compte des normes nationales et internationales et ainsi recommander des limites maximales pour les additifs alimentaires, les numérations microbiologiques, les résidus de pesticides, les résidus de médicaments vétérinaires, les métaux lourds, les auxiliaires technologiques et l'irradiation des aliments. Le Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill opérera en un one-stop shop pour tous les stakeholders, comme annoncé dans le programme du gouvernement. Le Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill veillera à la production, le stockage, la gestion, la manipulation et la consommation des aliments afin qu'ils n'affectent pas la sécurité sanitaire de nos aliments pour le respect des normes alimentaires internationales et l'instauration d'un système efficace de contrôle de la réglementation alimentaire. Monsieur le Président, en tant que gouvernement responsable, l'introduction du Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill aura définitivement pour objectif de protéger la santé des consommateurs en veillant à ce que la nourriture consommée, distribuée, importée et commercialisée soit conforme aux normes les plus strictes de sécurité sanitaire et d'hygiène alimentaire. Il est important de souligner que des aliments malsains contenant des bactéries nocives, de virus, des parasites ou des produits chimiques causent plus de 200 maladies. De récentes estimations indiquent que l'impact des aliments impropres à la consommation coûte chaque année environ 95 milliards de dollars aux pays à faible revenu et aux pays à revenu moyen du fait des pertes de productivité. De bonnes pratiques d'hygiène dans les secteurs de l'alimentation et de l'agriculture aideront à limiter l'émergence et la propagation de maladies d'origine alimentaire. Monsieur le Président, j'apprécie les mesures prises en ce qui concerne les normes relatives aux aliments halal et végétariens qui comprendront dorénavant des règles qui vont être strictement suivies à de nombreuses étapes de la production, telles que l'achat, la préparation, la transformation, la classification, l'emballage, l'étiquetage, le contrôle, le chargement, le déchargement, le transport, la distribution et le stockage, conformément aux règles. Et là, permettez-moi, Monsieur le Président, de mettre en lumière le travail déjà fait par le gouvernement concernant la sécurité alimentaire. Par l'intermédiaire de la commission FAO-OMS, du Codex Alimentarius ou toute autre norme internationale pertinente, le gouvernement, en partenariat avec les gouvernements des États membres, insiste sur les normes alimentaires internationales qui servent de base pour garantir les objectifs de santé publique tels que la sécurité alimentaire et la nutrition. Il ne faut pas non plus oublier le rôle joué par le ministère de l'Agro-industrie et la sécurité alimentaire, qui veille également à la prévention de l'entrée et de la présence de parasites exotiques, à la mise en œuvre de programmes d'action pour la protection des végétaux et aussi à la surveillance et la gestion des parasites existants et nouvellement introduits. Dans cette optique, concernant les normes relatives aux produits de transformation, il serait bon de ne pas oublier les artisans charcutiers locaux spécialisés dans la transformation de la viande porcine. Ces fabricants devront également être formés et être informés afin de mettre en œuvre les meilleures pratiques de fabrication et d'hygiène de base et d'assurer une qualité standard des produits finis et d'améliorer la qualité sanitaire. Monsieur le Président, il est difficile aujourd'hui d'imaginer les commerces alimentaires sans normes. Les normes alimentaires permettent aux consommateurs d'avoir confiance dans la sécurité, dans la qualité et l'authenticité des aliments qu'ils consomment, de la ferme, de la terre, de la mer jusqu'à la fourchette. Qui n'a jamais été surpris en lisant la liste des ingrédients sur les emballages de produits où on découvre des fois des codes assez illisibles comme E509, E224 ou E338 et j'en passe. Ce sont là, la plupart du temps, des additifs alimentaires et qui jouent d'ailleurs un rôle important dans la conservation et aussi dans le rehaussement de goût des aliments. La santé et la durabilité alimentaire sont des priorités croissantes pour le gouvernement, ainsi que pour les consommateurs dont nous protégeons les intérêts. Alors aujourd'hui, je voudrais encore une fois soutenir ce projet de loi et remercier le ministre de la Santé, car pour répondre à ces ambitions, le système alimentaire a un devoir d'y contribuer. Et c'est le rôle que jouera le Mauritius Food Standard Agency pour faciliter l'accès des consommateurs à une alimentation plus saine et plus durable. Ceci dit, Monsieur le Président, il est évident que le Mauritius Food Standard Agency viendra agrémenter le Food Act déjà existant. Je vais terminer mon intervention ici en félicitant le ministre de la Santé et je recommande ce projet de loi à la Chambre. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Honourable Vice Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for giving me the opportunity to intervene on the Mauritius Food Standard Agency Bill. As a small nation highly dependent on import for our food supply and food security, food safety is a prominent concern for us. This bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, will be a significant step forward for the food industry sector in Mauritius. By providing a regulatory framework, it will allow us to ensure best practice in the food trade and hence protect the health of our consumers. It will also promote transparency regarding the functioning of our food industry, as well as ensure consumer confidence, accountability, information, and certification. Mr. Speaker, sir, access to safe and nutritious food is key to sustaining life and promoting good health. On a global perspective, Figures are alarming when we see the number of food contamination and deaths occurring due to consumption of unsafe food. As had been mentioned by the previous speaker, according to the World Health Organization, every year, nearly 600 million people fall sick and about 420,000 die globally because they consume unsafe food contaminated with bacteria, viruses, and other chemicals. Studies have revealed that unsafe food containing harmful bacteria, virus, parasite, and chemical substances cause more than 200 diseases, including allergies, infectious diseases, and cancer, among others. Furthermore, unsafe food also creates a vicious circle of disease and malnutrition, particularly affecting the most vulnerable members of the society, that is, the infant, young children, the elderly, and the sick. Mr. Speaker, sir, safe and nutritious food is a key to promoting good health and well-being. But we often take for granted that the food we are consuming is safe. Thus, in a world where the food supply chain has become more complex, any food safety incident has negative effect on the public health, trade, and the economy, thus making food standard and regulation that much more important. Everybody has a role to play, that is, as we mentioned, from farm to table, to ensure the food we consume will not harm our health. The responsibility is shared between the government, the producers, and the consumer as well. The Mauritius Food Standard Bill will ensure that the food we are producing, consuming, importing, or exporting complies with the regional and international regulatory measures. One of the many objectives of the Mauritius Food and Food Standard Agency is that, as a regulatory body, it will be responsible for the recommendation of the limits of pesticide residues in food. Globally, almost 3 billion tons of pesticides are deployed per annum. As far as our country is concerned, a 2018 report from the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization has shown that we have increased the use of pesticide in our crops. But apparently, this trend is decreasing now. Pesticides are agrochemicals that have proved to be extremely useful naturally in fighting pests and diseases in our crop. Should these pests have proliferated, our crops would have been severely affected, thus putting our food security and economy at risk. However, the use of high level of agrochemicals in protecting our crop can also have potentially and highly deleterious impact on the economy, environment, and particularly on the public health. One of the many health hazards that can be triggered with the use of occupational exposure to pesticide is the development of cancer. The acute and chronic associated effects associated with the production, distribution, and the use of pesticide may be manifested in cytotoxic disorders, genotoxic mechanism with immunotoxicity and hormonal change and carcinogenesis. Studies have shown that a number of different cancers were associated to exposure to pesticide, including multiple myeloma, non-Hodgkin lymphoma, leukemia, bladder, breast, and prostate cancer. As far as Mauritius is concerned, recent figures have shown an increase in the trend of new cancer cases among our population. According to the Cancer Registry 2020 report, an increasing incidence of cancer is noted, both in male, increased by 8.3%, and in female, increased by 7.8% compared to the 2019 figures. As I mentioned earlier, Mr. Speaker, sir, the setting up of the Mauritius Food Standard Agency will undoubtedly address the issue of use and overuse of pesticide in our crops with an aim to control the same, thus preventing health hazard. I'm confident that such an endeavor will, to a certain extent, contribute to the decrease in the incidence of cancer in our population. Even if not directly, then at the very least, this measure of control will allow us to eliminate it as a confounding variable in our quest to decrease the harm to our population through the exposure to food. Mr. Speaker, sir, another important aspect with regard to this bill, which I would like to highlight, is the purpose of developing standards and procedures for the certification of halal food. In the bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, at Section 4F, mention is made to the effect that the agency shall be responsible for developing of standards and procedures for the certification of vegetarian food, halal food, and such other food as may be prescribed with such standard as the agency may determine. Since halal food requires rigorous production standard, it is a worldwide trend that consumers are beginning to see halal food product as healthy, organic, ethical, animal-friendly as well. In fact, the halal industry is one of the fastest growing food industries, and there is an increasing trend for consumers, regardless of their religious inclination, to choose halal product over product with uncertain source or ingredient. Many countries around the world, whether in the Middle East or in Europe, have implemented a halal authority for food analysis and consumption. For example, the European Committee for Standardization has set up a European standard on halal food. Countries that have adopted a halal food certification include countries like Iceland, Norway, Switzerland, and the Netherlands, amongst others. Halal food refers to food which is safe, hygienic, and not harmful to health. Determination and certification of halalness, apart from the religious aspect, is mostly concerned with how the meat, the ingredients, and the food product are chosen and handled in the food production process, and how cross-contamination is eliminated. In addition, Mr. Speaker, sir, halal implies a strict adherence to quality and hygiene in compliance with guidelines around good manufacturing practices. The Juma Mosque in Mauritius here has, over the years, been taking the responsibility for certifying whether the food is halal or not. But unfortunately, we do not have a legal or regulatory body to support this endeavor. Now, the Mauritius Food Agency can work together with such bodies as the Juma Mosque, which, as I have mentioned above, has a long experience in this field, to provide a better legal framework for this important aspect of the food industry. This is specifically what this bill addresses, as the Mauritius Food Agency will be responsible for ensuring a high degree of consumer confidence, ensuring food safety, hygiene, nutritional quality, and certification of processed food for consumption. Mr. Speaker, sir, a key role of the Mauritius Food Standards Agency will be to look into guidelines and compliance with regulatory measures. It will also work closely and collaborate with stakeholders in the private sector to promote awareness of food standard. It will also help to increase transparency and accountability through food hazard monitoring surveys, looking into the effectiveness of the food control system, as well as the labeling standard for food. It will also carry out training programs related to food safety and standards. This bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, is also expected to promote consistency between the regulatory measures at a national, regional, and international level. Food safety and consumption is a shared responsibility with the government, producers, and consumers. Everybody has a role to play in this sector to ensure the food we consume is safe and will not harm our health. Today, this government is presenting a bill to the House which has taken into consideration all the aspects of food, ranging from production to consumption. It is also to be noted that many local health experts and dietitians have welcomed the introduction of this bill and have said that it is high time to introduce this bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill will ensure a high degree of confidence in the food produced locally and those that we import as well as export. By the setting up of the Mauritius Food Standard Agency, Mauritius is stepping forward to join the League of European countries, as well as other countries like Singapore and Malaysia in this food sector. On an ending note, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are confident that this bill will modernize the food production sector in Mauritius, and on this side of the House, we entirely support this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
After the Honorable Jakatpal.
Mr. Speaker, sir, before proceeding with the summing up, I would like to thank the honorable members of Parliament from both sides of the House for having brought their insights on the Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill 2022. You will recall that on the 5th July, the Food Bill 2022 was enacted in this House. The Mauritius Food Standards Agency will complement this new Food Act. It will be a one-stop shop cutting across the whole food supply chain from production to consumption. The proposed Mauritius Food Standard Agency is a regulatory body which has been inspired from the best established agencies worldwide, including Australia, New Zealand, the European Union, and its member states. It will use as benchmarks legislative guidelines by the Food and Agricultural Organization and the World Health Organization. It will adapt the main guidelines of the Codex Alimentarius Commission to the realities of our Mauritian society. This agency will be operational on 1st January 2023, as announced in the Government Programme 2020-2024 of this government under the able leadership of Prime Minister Honorable Pravin Kumar Jagnat, who is determined to materialize this landmark achievement. Mr. Speaker, sir, government has to ensure that the food that reaches the plate of every Mauritian is safe, healthy, and of nutritional value. Let me bring some clarity on the views and comments expressed by MPs. Honorable Omir stated that we haven't launched any campaign to create awareness for all stakeholders. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me remind the House the draft MFSA bill was circulated among the key stakeholders in November last year, 2021. Among these stakeholders, there were the Ministry of Agro-Industry and Food Security, Mauritius Standards Bureau, representatives of various food business operators, syndicates, and representatives of consumers, such as Association des Consommateurs de l'île Maurice, the Association for the Protection of Environment and Consumers, as well as the Consumer Advocacy Platform. In the same way, a webinar was held on Monday, 20th December 2021 at the WHO local office in Port Louis with all the key stakeholders to discuss with the technical committee and the consultant, Dr. Bitsnich, some of the pertinent issues raised in their representation. Let me again, the Honorable Boulel also, according to him, has reliable information of the meeting held, and which he believed that the meeting did not meet its objective. So we would like to know exactly. It's good to hear from somebody who participated in the meeting and just how that the meeting was held and it was by large and far. But it's good to know what exactly he came to know and that we were supposed, obviously, to give the information and not that to ask for, to table the document. Honorable Omi again argued that the public is unlikely to be willing to pay the cost of achieving maximum theoretical level of safety, whether that cost is manifested in higher food prices or in restriction of freedom of choice. Mr. Speaker, so it's an international practice for a country to have an agency to set out food standards. It's not a theoretical measure. It's a practical, it's a reasonable measure, and it is happening at the right time. The determinant of food prices are demand and supply, country of origin, competition, foreign currency, freight mainly, and not only the safety and the quality. Therefore, we cannot compromise on food safety and nutritional quality. Mr. Speaker, sir, Honorable Omia stated that government has unfortunately not consulted all stakeholders and that food experts, be it from private sector or from other ministries, should be able to give their opinions independently. Again, let me remind the House that during the workshop that was organized in the presence of Dr. Bitsnich, those who were present in that workshop, microbiologists, chief government analyst, chief nutritionist of my ministry, general secretary of ASIM, health inspector of City of Port Louis, president of Consumer Advocacy Platform, representative of Ecclesia Group, manager of EDB, head of quality of IBL, seafood and food coordinator of MEXA, head of chemical unit of Mauritius Standards Bureau, principal scientific officer of the Ministry of Agro-Industry, development officer from the Ministry of Cooperatives, APS from the Ministry of Education, analyst from the Ministry of Finance, health inspector of the Mocha District Council, acting director of the Office of the DPP, representative of SME Mauritius, assistant commercial manager of the STC, and associate professor from the University of Mauritius. Honorable member also commented on over-regulation. Mr. Speaker, so I will comment on this issue at a later stage when refuting the arguments of Honorable Utim. Honorable Omia went further, stating that there were serious omissions in the composition of the board. There is no representative of Ministry of Fisheries. In fact, representative of the Ministry of Fisheries can be co-opted, as is specified in Section 810 of the bill, to attend the board meeting if their presence is needed. Honorable Omia talked about the possibility of having subcommittees for vegetarians and halal certification. I wish to point out that Section 9 provides for committees on specific issues, such as vegetarian foods and halal foods, where experts in these areas can be co-opted as provided in Section 810, and rightly pointed out by the Vice Prime Minister that we can get people who have experience, especially in halal food, from the Juma Mosque to be part of that committee. In Section 9, the committee shall consist of not more than 4 members determined by the board and shall meet as often as necessary. The committee shall report to the board after completion of their work within such time as the board may determine. Mr. Speaker, sir, if we had to include representatives of all organizations in the board, we'd end up with having more than 20 members. And would it be appropriate to have a board with more than 20 members? Honorable Omia further mentioned that the MFSA should be able to assess novel food, food additives, and genetically modified organisms. This is also pointed out by Honorable Boulel. And secondly, he also proposed the setting up, Honorable Omia proposed the setting up of a national food crime unit to look into food fraud risk in the country. We should make the distinction between the Food Act 2022, including the regulations, and the Food Standard, Mauritius Food Standard Agency. In the Food Act, there is provision to prohibit or regulate the sale, advertisement, or importation of any novel food. In the food regulations, any person importing, manufacturing, or selling any novel food shall obtain a pre-market approval permit issued by the supervising officer. So it is already catered in that law. Whereas the Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill provides for the development of standards related to novel food at Section 4A. where it has a responsibility to ensure high degree of consumer confidence in the safety and nutritional quality of food. Now, concerning food risk, may I draw the attention of the honourable member that investigating into fraud risk is a responsibility of the Enforcement Division of the Ministry, that is the Public Health and Food Safety Inspectorate, which is already catered in the Food Act. He also mentioned about reviewing the actual sampling strategy. Going through the bill properly, there is provision at section 5(3)(g) of the bill, which reads as follows. The MFSA will develop methods of sampling, analysis, and examination for the purpose of enforcing the provisions of the Food Act 2022. So the standard will be developed by the MFSA, but the implementing agency will be through the Health Inspectorate as it is already, the provision is made in the Food Act 2022. So it means the MFSA will develop guidelines which will be exercised by the Public Health and Food Safety Inspectorate through enforcement of the Food Act and the food regulations. He further proposed that the bill must also consider animal welfare, environment, and economic impact. And as also, the Honorable Boulel also, during his speech, stated issues related to foodborne disease, market sanitary condition. But the mandate of this bill is food safety and food nutrition, and not animal welfare. So now I will come up to the points raised by Honorable Utim. The Honorable Member mentioned that ingredients are written in small characters. The MFSA is mandated to look into it at section 5(3)(a), where the agency may develop draft standards and guidelines in relation to the articles of food under the Food Act 2022. As I said earlier, the MFSA developed the guidelines and standards, while the Public Health and Food Safety Inspectorate is the enforcement component under the Food Act. So it's already taken on board in the food regulations, where all mandatory food information under label of prepacked food shall be clearly legible as specified in guidelines, which will be developed by the MFSA. So till we don't have the guidelines developed by the MFSA, so we can't implement this. So I wish to inform the House that the new food regulations, that is under the Food Act, they are in the process of finalization. So we'll have the Food Act with a new set of food regulations, and obviously after later on at a later stage, the MFSA and its regulation. Honorable Utin raised concern about coding of ingredients. This has already been considered in the bill at section 4F. In fact, the MFSA will develop standards and procedures for the certification of vegetarian foods, halal foods, and such other foods as may be prescribed with such standards as the agency may determine. Among others, food certified as vegetarian or halal will bear the corresponding symbols. Obviously, we have to wait the time when this agency comes into operation, and by that time, they will start functioning, have consultation with all the stakeholders, and then start implementing these measures. So, Honorable Member also stated the agency may require to disclose the fat content, sugar content in a product sold locally. Here again, Honorable Member must be made aware that this has already been considered in the draft regulation of the Food Act 2022. The MFSA will set criteria to ensure that food business operators disclose fat content or sugar content in a product sold locally as set in section 4A, as mentioned earlier. So in the forthcoming regulation, the following food containing any of the following nutritional items should bear a statement setting out the amount of each item per 100 milligrams or 100 milliliters and the percentage of daily intake. So it is the energy expressed in kilojoules or kilocalorie, the protein, fat, saturated fatty acid, carbohydrates, sodium, sugars, dietary fibers, and trans fat. So again, these are all information for the public in general, so that they get all the information required, what will be displayed, and what are the concerns that we will be having. So obviously, all these measures, it will come during its time. We have to give time for information, for the communication, before applying these measures. Honorable Utim elaborated on the accuracy of information and maximum limits of additives and pesticide residue. So as rightly pointed out, the responsibility of the MFSA is to develop or revise food standards, having regard to international relevant standards and recommending maximum limits of food additives, microbiological counts, pesticide residues, veterinary drug residues, heavy metals, processing aids, microtoxin, and irradiation of food as per Section 5(3)(c) of the MFSA bill. So these standards will be adapted from international organizations like the Codex Alimentarius or Food Standards, Australia, New Zealand. So stakeholders, again, will have to be, will have to be given prior notice and will have to be communicated properly before the implementation through regulation. Honorable Utim elaborated on the Mauritian culture of street food and on the importance of training. Training of food handlers is already provided in the food regulation and has been ongoing for the past 22 years. In fact, training of food hygiene handlers is one of the mandatory requirements prior to obtaining a food handler certificate under the food regulations. Presently, there are 13 regional health officers of the Public Health and Food Safety Inspectorate around the island, with a workforce of 102. We intend to increase that number with the forthcoming into force of the MFSA bill. Last year, 17,355 food handlers certificates were delivered to them. For this year, from January to September, a total of 58,173 food handler certificates have already been issued. So in 2021, the Public Health and Food Safety Inspectorate carried out 19,162 inspections around the island and issued 2,134 improvement notices and established 374 contraventions. In 2022, at the end of September, 14,564 inspections were carried out of which 2,290 improvement notices issued and 293 contraventions established. Honorable Utim queried whether this will be a condition to obtain their license, and secondly, whether food hawkers will be given a moratorium to comply with any food safety standard prescribed by the agency. Obviously, yes. All food handlers must be in possession of the food handler certificate before they start to operate, and there will be a moratorium for food hawkers, food business operators to comply with any food safety standard prescribed by the agency. We have no intention to ostracize, persecute, or harass food business operators. Our aim is to ensure that healthy food lands in our plate. Hence, we have to be cautious at all levels of food supply chain. On one side, yes, we have to guarantee public confidence in food safety and nutritional quality, and on the other side, we have to ensure that food business operators clearly understand government mission to safeguard food safety and nutritional quality. Let me inform the House about the case the Honorable Boulel just pointed out. That is, a food business operator in the region of Port Louis was served an emergency closing order. And this is because our Public Health and Food Safety Inspectorate found that he did not satisfy conditions necessary for hygienic production of food. After inspection, 22 shortcomings were noted on his food premises, and a notice before issue of emergency closing order was served on the operator for non-compliance with the standards set in the food regulation in force. Unfortunately, he failed to comply with the order, and an emergency closing order was served. Eventually, he was allowed to operate again, as he agreed to stop some of his activities which were causing non-compliance. And my intervention in this case was not to interfere with the decision of the health inspectors, as pointed out. This is not my intention to interfere. In fact, we politicians should not interfere in the work of the health inspectors when they are carrying out their duties and try to make this become a political issue by, going to the press and do all sorts of issues. In fact, we have to understand that the FBO, that is the food business operators, they have to abide to regulation. They will be served a notice for compliance, and it is not that the emergency order will come the next day. They have to be given the time. But here, because of non-compliance, and after that food business operator, he himself said that, okay, I'm going to operate part of this business, which was allowed by the health inspectors, and it is not the minister that has to interfere. Honorable Utin talked about the powers of the minister. Just to summarize his queries, he questioned the presence of the director, MSB, or he talked about apparent mainmise of the minister on the operations of the agency. He questioned about appointment of representative of organization, and also that is the appointment of the director, the staff, and whether the director would depend on the minister, or why the director is not from the private sector, and whether the minister would approve the estimates of income and interfere on the board decisions to buy equipment, or the minister will act as the, what he said, as the human resource manager. So let me answer this. Now, concerning the board member of MSB, it is true that there is presently no director in post at the Mauritius Standards Bureau. However, as stated in Section 7J of the MFSA bill, the director or his representative may act as member of the board. So there is always somebody who can represent the MSB. Honorable Utim argued that the minister will have a mainmise on the operation of the agency and that he will approve the appointment of the director. There is some confusion here between the appointment and the approval. The director of the MFSA is appointed by the board. And the members of the board, I believe you have it on Section 7, there are more than, I think, 12 members of that board, including representatives from consumer protection, different ministries. They will appoint the director. The minister only gives the approval. This is normal administrative procedures. I believe at one time, if ever, but it doesn't seem in the near future, whenever you will come from on this side of the house, you will understand the administrative procedures. Now, this is a usual practice. So anyway, concerning directors decide policies, no. It is government decides policies. Directors of corporate, they only implement. They develop and implement these policies. They don't decide policies. We decide policies, we debate on such policies, and they implement what the decisions are here. Now, let me remind you about the introduction of the Nursing Council Bill in 2003. I believe you will understand why I point out 2003. So again, here at section, I have not done so much homework, but just that little homework. So at section 41 of the bill for the Nursing Council, the minister may give to the council such directions of a general nature not consistent with this act as he thinks fixed, and the council shall comply with such a direction. So the honourable member is talking about MEMI, so I won't go further into that. We have to understand. So again, Honourable Lachman Roy already referred to the section 5 of this bill. That is the function of the agency, and I'm not again going to reply to it. Now, the question was about the appointment of the representative of the consumer organization. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is not the responsibility of the agency to decide who will represent the consumer organization. The various consumer organizations should be able to delegate a representative for the board of the MFSA. So it is not the agency that will decide, it will come from the different organizations. Honourable Utim asks about the terms and conditions of the employment of the director, of the staff of the agency, and whether the director would depend on the minister and other issues on the, whether this director, why is it not from, does not he come from the private sector? So let's answer these questions. So now imagine the director is from the private sector, appointed by the board, and the board decides the salary of the director. There is nothing with the minister, and the package of its members, the terms and conditions of appointment, and they are totally independent. And earlier the question was raised by Honorable Omia that over-regulate. Now we give that independence totally to the board, and they decide whatever they wish to do. And you address me a PQ on this issue, and now I will reply you in simple language. See, as per the Act, the Mauritius Food Standard Act, so I don't have any power. I can't even question the board because they are totally independent. They decide the salary, they decide the terms and conditions, they over-regulate or they under-regulate, they take all the decision. And again, you as chairperson, chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, don't you want to know what the board is doing, what the director is doing, if it is coming from the Ministry of Health? Don't you want to get this information? You referred to purchase of procurement of equipment. Yes, we are accountable. It's okay. You try to get it, the political mileage through, that is okay. We understand that. But you as chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, don't you want to get this information? Were you not happy to question the officers of the ministry, to put me questions, to put me P&Q? I'm here to answer to you. That's why the bill, there is a provision for the minister to give approval, for the terms and conditions. So that's the reason. So it's good to see the other side, but try to see this side also, what is good in this bill, and then the minister is here to give you all information. So I believe that I've answered most of your queries. Probably it's good to also to say that, because for the public it's good to know. You mentioned also the post of the director of the MFSA may be tailor-made. Mr. Speaker, sir, Section 10.4 of the MFSA bill stipulates that the director shall be an officer of the ministry holding a degree in food safety, food hygiene, food science, and or any equivalent qualification and at least 7 years of experience. Presently, there are at least 24 officers of the ministry eligible for the post. Is this tailor-made? And the post of director, they all meet the qualification and work experience of requirements. I will also point out that officers of the ministry are more acquainted with our policies and setup. And can you imagine you get somebody from the private sector, the director, and we are talking about, regulations on food quality and food control, and you were talking earlier on, Marchand, Gâteau Piment, and Rôti. And can you imagine if ever we don't have any say in such an agency, what would happen? You would have come and tell us. we would have to modify and to say that, yes, we should be answerable to Parliament, we should be answerable to whatever the agency is doing for the population. Because after all, we are all democratically elected. I believe that you agree with us, even though at some point of time you did not agree with us, but now it's time to agree that we are all democratically elected by the people, for the people, and we have to be responsible for this management of public fund. So, yeah. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Mauritius Food Standard Agency will be a game changer in ensuring that food is safe and of nutritional value. We have to give time for this agency to start its operation. We should not press on them. We should give them time to accumulate, to get all this experience, and then to start acting. And I'm sure that in years to come, we will be able, this Food Standard Agency will be able to achieve what really the government is willing to. With this enactment of the Food Act 2022, we have paved the way for the introduction of innovative measures. This MFSA will also be a think tank and carry out research work to ensure population is healthy. It will act primarily as an advisory body, proposing food standards for adoption, as well as coordinating and reviewing the food control system. The next step is now to inculcate healthy eating habits among the population. And to be able to do so, it is a responsibility of the government to ensure that food available is safe, of nutritional value, properly legislated and regulated. Mr. Speaker, sir, the MFSA bill sets out ambitious objectives. My ministry will ensure that proper information, communication, assistance are provided to all stakeholders in order to ensure smooth transition. In doing so, we shall make sure that we are at par with international norms and standards and we aim to meet the collaboration of all stakeholders, be it food business operators, food hawkers, unions, NGOs, consumers, is required for the successful implementation of the Mauritius Food Standard Agency. To end up, I would like to thank the Attorney General Office and the Public Health and Food Safety Inspectorate of my ministry, particularly Mr. Nagapacheti, Director, Mr. Yusuf Gongu, the Principal Public Health and Food Safety Inspector, former directors, Mr. Bisnuchandar Temba and Mr. Mchan Biari for their assistance in the preparation of this bill, and the whole team for their involvement in preparing this bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you for your attention, and then I now commend the bill to the House.
The question is that the Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill number 13 of 2022 be read a second time. Those in favor say aye, those against say no. Aye. The ayes have it.
Committee stage.
Will be seated.
Clause 1, short title. Clause 2, interpretation. Clause 3, establishment of agency. Clause 4, objects of agency.
The question is that clauses 1 to 4 stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, those against say no. The ayes have it.
Clause 5, functions of agency.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I move for the amendment as per amendment circulated.
Any debate? The question is that clause 5 be amended as per amendment circulated. Those in favor say aye, those against say no. The ayes have it. The question is that clause 5 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, those against say no. The ayes have it.
Clause 6, powers of agency. Clause 7, the board. Clause 8, meetings of board. Clause 9, committees. Clause 10, director. Clause 11, appointment of employees. Clause 12, disclosure of interest. Clause 13, powers of minister.
Question is that clauses 6 to 13 stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, those against say no. The ayes have it.
Clause 14, general fund. Clause 15 estimates, clause 16 annual report, clause 17 donations and exemptions, clause 18 logo of agency, clause 19 protection from liability, clause 20 execution of documents, clause 21 exemptions, clause 22 legal proceedings, clause 23 confidentiality, clause 24 offenses, clause 25 transitional provisions, clause 26 consequential amendment, clause 27 regulations, clause 28 commencement.
The question that clauses 14 to 20 is part of the bill, those in favor say aye, those against say no. Aye. Ayes have it.
Title and enacting clause.
Question that title and enacting clause send part of the bill. Those in favor say aye, those against say no. Aye. Ayes have it. The question is that I do report to the House that the Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill number 13 of 2022 has passed the committee stage with amendment. Those in favor say aye, those against say no. Aye. The ayes have it. Please be seated. Honorable members, I have to report to the House that the Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill number 13 of 2022 has passed the committee stage with amendment.
Third reading.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I move that the Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill number 13 of 2022 be read a third time and passed.
Seconded? Seconded. The question is that the Mauritius Food Standards Agency Bill number 13 of 2022 be read the third time and passed. Those in favor say aye, those against say no. Aye. The ayes have it. Adjournment motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the adjournment of the Assembly to Thursday, 3rd November at 3:30 p.m.
The question is that the House be adjourned to Thursday, 3rd of November 2022 at 3:30 p.m. Those in favor say aye, those against say no. Aye. Ayes have it. Adjournment matter, I will leave you in the hands of my learned friend, the Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. Honorable Ismail Mohammed.
Deputy Speaker, sir, I would like to address the Honourable Minister of Public Utilities tonight regarding the shifting of high-voltage cables that are low-lying over several houses in a region in Valley Pitou known as Block 10. Following a formal request that I had received from Association Sociale et Civique, I had formally written to the General Manager of the CEB 5 months ago, on 23rd of May 2022, and following which a site visit took place and some commitments were taken by the CB officers. However, since then, nothing has happened. My request tonight is for the Honourable Minister to kindly request the CB to revive this matter with a view to having these dangerous high-voltage cables shifted as soon as possible. I have the documents with me. I will submit it for the attention of the Minister.
Au vu de mon collègue n'a pas pu venir aujourd'hui, je vais passer le message et retransmettre le dossier. Et il prendra les actions nécessaires.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. The matter which I would like to raise concerns the Minister of Education. The Honourable Vice Prime Minister is unfortunately not here. And it relates to the leakage of the examination paper for HSC, which happened last week. The exam paper was pure maths, and I have received calls from various parents who are very worried about how such an incident happened, but also what would happen to that examination paper, whether it will be cancelled, whether new exam will be taken, and especially those competing for scholarship are very mindful that any student who may have had access to the leak mathematics paper does not get an unfair advantage over someone who was very honest and did not have a look at any of the leaked papers. So I would be grateful if the Honourable Vice Prime Minister could at least make a statement to the press or reassure all these parents as to what will happen with regards to the examination in pure maths.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I'll pass on the message to the Minister of Education.
Thank you. Honourable Chanoy.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. My address this evening is to the Deputy Prime Minister, Honourable Steve Obigadu, Minister of Land and Housing as well. I have been informed by inhabitants of Ramsaran Lane in Valley des Prêtres of illegal work on the flank of Priest Peak Mountain. They have sent a copy of the letter to you and to the LDA as well, as they have informed the MPs of the area that there are some illegal works, according to them, being carried out on that area, and which is considered to be a flood-prone area. So I would request the Deputy Prime Minister to use his good office and to look into the matter urgently. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Certainly, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I must confess that I have not come across such a correspondence. I would urge my honourable friend to bring any information she has in her possession to my attention, and if it is suspected that an illegal act has been committed, I am sure you will concur, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that the first step would be to report it to the police.
Thank you very much. Honourable Jean Béranger.
Je vous remercie. Ma requête s'adresse à l'honorable ministre des collectivités locales. Les habitants de Vakwa devant emprunter la ruelle, aussi connue sous le nom de Govindan Lane, déplorent le manque de luminosité et le fait que les escaliers fraîchement construits et menant à l'avenue Sivananda ne soient pas équipés de barrières de soutien pour les personnes âgées, ni d'accès, de facilité d'accès, pour fauteuils roulants. Je lui demanderai donc de bien vouloir faire le nécessaire et de s'assurer que toute démarche soit inclusive et prenne en considération les besoins de tout un chacun. Je vous remercie.
Thank you.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I'll pass on the message to the Chief Executive of Vakwa Phoenix.
Honourable Faralumia.
Thank you. My request is addressed to the Vice Prime Minister, Minister of Local Government. My request concerns the erection of a pretty huge mirador that occupies more than half of the width of the road along Dr. Eugène Laurent across the Mauritius Turf Club on Fridays preceding racecourse events organized by People's Turf. Will the Minister see with the relevant authorities that appropriate warning signs, reflecting banners, and lighting equipment be affixed to this mirador to avoid unfortunate accidents, this being a major route for the inhabitants of Valipito and Trengbao. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I'll pass on the message to the Municipality of Port Louis.
Honourable Fabrice David.
Merci, Monsieur le Vice-président. Ce soir, je souhaiterais attirer l'attention du ministre des Transports terrestres sur une zone à risque pour les accidents de la route, à savoir la zone industrielle de Plaine-Lausanne, qui est traversée quotidiennement par des centaines de véhicules individuels, professionnels et industriels. À plusieurs croisements de cette zone industrielle, le marquage au sol est devenu quasi invisible et les panneaux de signalisation sont souvent inexistants. L'un des exemples les plus flagrants est l'intersection se trouvant non loin du supermarché Dream Price à Plaine-Lausanne, où la ligne blanche a disparu et où je n'ai vu pas le moindre panneau stop depuis au moins 2 ans. Pour réduire le risque important d'accident de la route, puis-je suggérer en particulier à cette dangereuse intersection grandement traversée l'installation de ce qu'on appelle techniquement un RSP, Raised Safety Platform, qui obligera les automobilistes à ralentir. Merci pour la considération du ministre et du ministère concerné.
Monsieur le Président, je prends note et j'informerai mon collègue de ce problème et il va prendre les actions nécessaires. Merci.
Honourable Adila Miamia.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Sir, the issue I'm raising tonight is addressed to the Minister of Public Utilities, but also to the Minister of Public Infrastructure. It's in relation to the very bad state of the Abattoir Road, which is found in my constituency, constituency number 3 in Rochebois. It starts from the junction of Saint-Martin Street up to the motorway near the passerelle in Rochebois. What has happened is that it has been more than a year that CWA, following the works of CWA rather, at the said side, the conditions of the road has been left unattended and resulting in a hole of approximately 1 meter width and 50 meters long. So this, as you are aware, that this road is being used as a shortcut to enter and leave the city, and the very bad state of the road causes traffic congestion, but also is a risk for accident. So therefore, I urge the Honourable Minister, if he can do needful, to tar the road ASAP. Thank you.
Monsieur le Président, je vais transmettre les doléances de notre honorable membre au ministre concerné.
I believe we're done for the day. Have a safe trip back.